Another wonderful day. Today I'm taking the truck with a load of firewood to the cabin, and it's compared to yesterday a very nice day, as it was rainy and very miserable. Today the sun is shining, gorgeous and relatively dry, so it would be a perfect day to go out to the cabin and get the firewood set up. We are now arriving into town of Camden. It is pretty much the beginning of Tuck Hill Plateau. It is not far from the Adirondacks Natural Park and National Park for New York, which is millions of acres of mountainous terrain and woods. This is again considered the beginning of the Tuck Hill Plateau. Camden is called the Queen Village of Oneida County, and right now we just entered the town or village limits. Downtown Camden. To my left is the realtor lady I bought my property from, a very nice person. The real estate agency's name is R.A. Wilkes. Her name is Bambi. I'm going to be turning in here because I need to put an address for Camden School District to pick up my school tax property bill. I have misplaced it. Earlier I called and the lady was nice enough to reprint me my bill, so I can pay that too when I'm here in town. A nice character in his long trench coat and cowboy hats and boots. They still have the old school hardware stores here in town. This is a cute little section of the town. It's called Church Street. There are at least 4 churches on this little strip of road, hence the name Church Street. I also like the old Victorian homes that are located on either side of the road as well. This is back Route 69 that crisscrosses the town, and straight ahead farther east takes you to Rome, New York area, and I'm sure it goes farther east into probably Adirondack region. Not sure how well you can see the homes on either side of the road. These are pretty nice Victorian style homes. This is the last stretch of the paved road to my cabin. I was late to turn the camera on to show you the beautiful pond that is at the turning point. I wanted to just go ahead and record this last stretch of the paved road to you guys before I arrive. About 5 years ago, when I contacted a realtor that was listing this property, and when I decided to go take a look, this is the stretch of road that made me really want to buy it, as we are deep in the woods here, and this tunnel of trees, I'm sure the camera is not doing it justice. If you were driving through this in person, it actually looks great. I can see that there's a little glare on top of the roots coming in. But this was the section that says, I don't care how this property looks like, I really want to buy it before I even see it. However, once I get there and I saw that it was actually beautiful by itself, and the fact that it had established trails helped convince me make the decision right on the spot. And as soon as I turned back into Camden, I went to the realtor's office and put an offer in. This is now called Sheehan Road. This is the last stretch. have to turn into the dirt road, which is about 1.6 miles from the dirt road to my cabin. And we are definitely driving to higher altitudes. The elevation is just gradually increasing. Out here is the last piece of farmland. These people I have met, they do organic farming, and they are really nice people. This on our left is the last property before we turn into the dirt road that takes us to the cabin. And this is the flat part, and my turn is coming up ahead. Now, this is a dirt road which is also used as a snowmobile trail in the winter. The North Country here in New York is an excellent area for snowmobiling and many other winter sports. And this piece of the road is maintained by TC Riders Snowmobile Club. TC for Taberg Camden Snowmobile Riders Club. And this is the road. It's kind of narrow. When you come across another person driving the opposite direction, you kind of have to pull over, and or hopefully you notice them far enough that you can honk and warn them. Especially driving in here with a trailer, it is extra difficult to be able to do your maneuvering. Now we're going downhill a little. Farther ahead, if you can see the little puddles of the road, it is because on either side of the road is a big pond, and I can tell it has been overflowing. Sorry that you can really see the pond on the other side because of the overgrown trees, but this little water that's running across the road is again the overflow of the pond from one side to another. I think there's an opening here that I can show you. To my left is the pond, and it crosses over. The water is running over the road to the other side. It's been quite some wet season lately. We're still driving in, even though it's only 1.6 miles to the cabin from the paved roads, because you are going right about around 10 miles an hour, unless you want to really abuse your vehicle and go faster, which would take a lot of bouncing and jumping, which may hurt or put excess wear and tear on your vehicle. It takes about 7 to 10 minutes to make it. Now I'm going a little slower than normal because I do have the trailer loaded with firewood. I don't want that to bounce around, and I have my weed eater and a couple pieces of that little furniture I picked up. It makes it extra noisy as the trailer is much lighter and bouncing up and down. Some cabins to the left, and there's another log cabin coming up on the right hand side. These have been here for so long. This road is actually an old town road. When you're walking deep into the woods, you see some foundations of old buildings that has definitely been ruined. During the World War I heard the town folks, the males in the town that joined the war, many of which never made it back, and those who have returned moved to bigger cities to get jobs in the during the World War I, 1914 and 1918 era, and ever since the town has been abandoned. Now, the abandoned town, the farmlands, has been overtaken by the woods. There's the little log cabin. We're going to be crossing over a creek again. The creek is the one that actually traverses through my land. Right in this area, they had to put a new culvert pipe because the creek had washed and created a sinkhole about where I'm driving over right now. And the creek goes under and overflows to the other side. It seems like it's a nice job. They strengthened this pass, and the giant culvert pipe hopefully will last longer than it did before. Here we are at the cabin. I parked my truck and the trailer. I may have to get a little closer so I can line up the trailer a little better so I can get to the entrance of my cabin, because see the low stockpile of firewood I have left. I will be stacking up my firewood up here against the wall so it's staying out of the elements and it remains dry when it's time for me to use. I just noticed that my weed eater has actually came loose. Again, nothing lasts against that bouncy dirt road. I actually had it tied up. Thank God the real tailgate held it in place. And these are the two little pieces of furniture I picked up from the old man. And under this tarp, I have a cord of seasoned firewood where I will be stacking up shortly. Open the cabin and see what it looks like inside. I have a padlock and a regular house door here. In the winter time, I pretty much block the door with a piece of plywood and all my windows. As we have a lot of snowfall here, the windows are sealed with a piece of plywood, so when the ice and the snow falls off the roof, it does not damage or break my windows. Also, as a little measure of safety and security for potential break-ins. However, my cabin being close to the road, I really don't think anybody would dare. However, it is still possible. Now, just the other day, I have come in and put the corner nook here. It just fits. There's a day bed. It's quite comfortable. I have a little TV and a DVD player powered by a generator. I have it all wired in through the cabin. So when I have the generator running outside, here's the power cord. It goes through the wall, and there's power outlets that helps power up my lighting, and this little LED light bar, which makes it very bright in here. However, for any emergencies, or if I do not want to hear a generator running, I do have little LED lights attached. Even have an old school oil lamp or an LED lantern again, and couple motion sensor LED lights. As soon as you get off the bed, it triggers, the motion triggers it to turn on. When I had the Amish build this cabin, I wanted to have a separate wall built just to create a different section I call it the bedroom, as it should be, just so that if somebody wants to sleep in privacy, they can go in, they can sleep without being disturbed by the people that may still be up. Again, by the head of the bed, I have put in a couple little LED lights, another motion one in case you need to get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. You can just click on the lens to turn it on. A plastic armoire, my pillows, sleeping bags. There's an old chest. I put a couple of cushions on it so you can sit down and change. There's a small futon here. I have used these foam comfort flooring on the entrance of the cabin. As you see, the floor of the cabin is actually bare 3/4 inch plywood, pressure treated, and the skid place underneath is also pressure treated. When I got the cabin, I got it just bare bones like this. It was just frame and the outer wall. I have used insulation throughout the studs, and I have used the tongue and groove pine material to seal the walls and the ceiling. Now I deliberately left the loft area. Actually, if you ever needed to, I made it so large enough that you can put a sleeping bed, air mattress or something, and still have a couple people sleep up there. But right now, as you see, it's used for storing stuff that we really don't need. And then here's my little kitchenette area. A couple of these things has to go back home with me or just be trashed. This cabin does not have running water, so what I use is carrying water. This is my little faucet setup. I'm using a fish cleaning table, a plastic folding table that actually has its own little sink, and the way I catch the dirty water is into this bucket. As I use it, I go ahead and dump it outside. This is my little skillet grill, and I have a little butane gas stove to boil up some water or cook on it, but I actually use the skillet grill to cook more often. It's a lot easier. You can crack eggs on it, you can cook steak on it, you can cook burgers and what have you. And little nails on the wall just to help keep my little pots and pans, and a little shelving, an enclosed plastic tub where I keep the sugar and tea or other things that I don't want the critters to get in. Obviously, we are in the middle of the woods and there will be always mice. There's my generator. When I was buying the generator, I have looked all over. I compared the Honda version, which was almost double the price as this Harbor Freight purchase Predator 2000 watt generator. I do have an older Coleman Sportsman generator too, which was a little noisier than this one. I am very happy with the purchase. I bought this on sale, which was around $450. It is nice, it's quiet, and it's very fuel efficient. Now, I have also set up what I call a bathroom area when I was getting the cabin built, because eventually if I have ever a septic system and a well system dug up, I can actually put a proper toilet here. Just now we are using a chemical toilet that you would be using on the boats or other camping areas, which has a cartridge to contain the dirty water. It has its own little freshwater tank that you can use to flush the business, and it takes, you know, a couple treatment liquids once in a while to keep help breakdown of the toilet. I put a little shelving little medicine cabinet to keep, you know, some necessities in here, and of course extra storage places for the little knickknacks that I think I may need. Right now I have the couple chairs here. Normally they are outside on the deck. They're plastic, so they're perfect for being outdoors. They don't really get affected by the rain or snow. It just the sun may bake them and may eventually become brittle. But this is a quick review of the cabin. Now during the winter months it is really well sealed. I really don't get much draft or cold air here, but for the chilly nights I have this beautiful wood stove that I have installed. When I was having the Amish build me the cabin, I actually have provided them the pass-through section of the wood stove so that I did not have to cut beams or cut through the wood. I actually provided them ahead of time. When they were building the cabin, they actually had that already installed and made the measurements just right. So when I had them to install it at that spot, an elbow, a section of the pipe, and another elbow made the perfect height to attach my wood stove. This wood stove is a Craigslist find. Little town called Hannibal, New York. This gentleman was advertising one. I liked it. It had a good deal. It's an old school cast iron wood stove, and I like the little decoration on it. Conveniently, it has a picture of a cabin. I always keep some water in this big giant pot to help keep the air somewhat moist. And this little tool I added last year called Echo Fan. It is pretty much generated by the heat the stove provides. As the aluminum body heats up, little motor turns, the blade actually distributes that warm air evenly throughout the cabin. We keep going. I'll be using my tool that I showed you in one of my videos. We call this nacak in Turkish. It's pretty much a little handy tool with a hooked nose. It is used to chop wood into smaller pieces as kindling. I'll be using this to get as little pieces as I could out of these extra pieces, so I can help start my fire easily in the winter time. I will be putting them in a paper bag right by the wood stove, so it's nice and dry inside the cabin to help me this was a stubborn one. I'm using the studs of the staircase that I built going up onto the front porch of the cabin. I will get as much as I can, so I have plenty of them ready for the winter. This was somewhat easier. I'll go at it. This guy is somewhat wet and it's a real hardwood. This does not want to break any smaller. So I'll just still toss it onto the pile and get more. When I was carrying the firewood, there were a lot of little scrap pieces in there too. These will be just fine as they are. Let's go try to get more split into smaller pieces. So I have quite a pile ready for me when I need them. I guess what I have will suffice. I will be able to start my fire with this. I also use some fire starters, little knickknacks I have also by the stove. If anything fails and if I happen to have some wet wood to help get that going, I may use a little bit of gasoline in a little spray bottle just to inflame the fire. Even though it may be a little dangerous, you have to be very careful. That's why I use a spray bottle instead of like a gasoline can to put some on it to help start it. Especially sometimes when you come here and it's very cold out and you want that fire to go quickly, it does help. Well, I think what I have right now and what I already had some inside the cabin should suffice. I don't want to use much bigger blocks of wood to chop any further down. I may need to as the winter goes and I start using some of this firewood, but for starters this should suffice. Let's go inside so I can show you the setup that I have here. I just pull the blinds up so there's a little more light in here, but right here, my wood stove, I still have a couple of little hatchets and a hammer. Sometimes I do have to put a piece of firewood, put the hatchet right on it and hammer it down to split some of the bigger logs. But right here is my firewood starter. There's a gel starter too, which helps the thicker pieces of wood catch on fire easier, as the gel does not run off the wood and it is flammable. There is a couple of these little fire start bricks as well, and there's the little paper bag of kindling that I just chopped down so I can help start the wood easily. Right inside the cabin I do have a little stack of firewood too, so I don't have to necessarily open the door, let the cold air in to get more. As this supply goes down, I stack them up, so I always have it indoors, which rest assured will be nice and dry. Well, on to the next project. So even though the grass isn't that bad in this area, I want to use my walk behind weed eater and chop some of the grass down to make it easier for everyone else to walk around. And I like to keep around the cabin clear for critters or other animals. As you can see, this area, even though I cut it down a couple months ago, has been overgrown, I just noticed where I am walking is somewhat wet. I do have some water running in this tall grass area along the wood line, and some of them did pass this way. However, as I mentioned earlier, as I was coming up towards the cabin, my cabin sits on a rather high ground. So since it is sitting on skid plates, pressure treated, and there's some air circulation underneath, I still wanted to make sure it is nice and relatively dry underneath. Let's walk around. What I liked about this property when I first looked at it, as you can see, the road is right in front of us, and where I put my chain had this great large opening to be able to pull in here with a truck and a trailer and still maneuver around. And then farther down, if I can zoom in, right in that area where you see some tall grass is another opening. I contemplated about building a bigger cabin, probably like a 20 by 20, and hopefully with a loft or a second floor this past summer. With this pandemic nonsense, when the lumber prices have skyrocketed, I decided not to. Because what I have, again, a 12 by 26 cabin the Amish had built for me that I got trailered right in, is actually more than sufficient for me. And once in a while, a few people that I may have with me to enjoy the cabin, my boys, my friends, etc. But why not? If I had another bigger one built, I could have got this removed back out of here, take it to my property where I have 5.5 acres and a lot of open fields and a giant lawn. I could have used this, maybe carry it to the land where the house is and use it for a workshop or something else. I would love to buy another property somewhere in the southern tier. Maybe I'll just leave this the way it is right here, and hopefully if I come across a good deal, I would like to build one somewhere else. My camera battery was getting low, so I put it inside the truck and use my car charger to add more power to it, because what I want to do now that I am done with the mowing around the cabin, let me show you with my weed eater. Came out really nice. The machine is really capable of chopping down even the thick stuff. You can see these are just tall grass, but behind that is a little wet spot along the woods line which goes all the way down. I want to deliberately leave it tall so people refrain from going farther that way and get muddy feet. I'm going to leave the truck here and I will be heading out deeper into the woods to cut more grass into the trails. Not that I really need it, it's something to do, and I like the way it comes out, because pretty soon as the temperatures get colder, the vegetation will eventually die out and they eventually lay flat. But let me show you this particular area right open to that tree stump looked just like this. I'm really happy with this Cub Cadet brand walk behind weed eater. I have two others, different brands. They've been just giving me a hard time starting up. I ended up giving in and pick up a brand new one this past summer. I used it around the house, especially with the culvert where the weeds grow really tall. It's just pain in the neck to handle a handheld weed eaters, you eventually get tired. It's just cumbersome. This one, you just walk behind. The larger plastic wheels make it easy to move it in any particular terrain. But just so that you can see the comparison again, I have cut down pretty much this. You can see the string marks where it's been chopping down the weeds. In this whole area that I'm pointing out, even this rotting tree stump that was about 4 feet tall with the weeds, and I just attacked that to have a little more opening. I really don't need to do much more because there's plenty of free space around the cabin. I like that nice clearing. Again, you know what you're stepping into, and the weeds around the cabin I chopped down, so it helps the air circulation going through the cabins underneath. So we will walk farther into the woods and do more weed eating. This is again the main path. You can tell the fresher, greener grass that I am chopping down once again from the cabin. If you notice right behind me, let me turn around. I deliberately left this tall. It's relatively dry. However, farther down that way, there are some big giant machinery tire ruts that's getting swampy. But me leaving it tall convinced the deer to come and bed in the tall grass. I know once in a while when I come here at night, as I arrive at the cabin with the headlights pointing out towards the woods as I pull in, I see right along this tree line, a few set of eyeballs glowing in dark in my headlights. Again, you can see the bedding. They have been definitely using this for their night camp. I'm gradually making my way, weed eating, all the way to the cabin. I'm sorry, the creek. From the cabin direction to the creek. But on my last video, as I shown, even though the path looks somewhat okay and I just weed trimmed a little better, there are some branches and thorny berry bushes overtaken into the trail, which makes it a little difficult to go. I'm gonna use my little handy dandy Camillus Carnivore X machete slash saw tool to chop down some of these to get the trail open. Thanks for the handy dandy tool. The trail looks much better. It was fun to deal with the thorny berry bushes though. Prickly suckers. I have successfully weed trimmed my way to the creek. As I'm shown on my previous video, you can see the signs of flooding as the creek pretty much comes straight that way and this way. It has few branches before it heads down, but apparently we had a lot of rain and you can tell the water has overran this whole area. There are a lot of debris stuck and washed through. I can tell where I have just weed trimmed the main path. It is somewhat moist under the grass and I see a lot of tree branches and everything else that's sitting on this piece of flat part between the creeks. Now farther ahead, that way, the creek bends and continues. Let me go around and show you. Now, last time I was here, I was not wearing boots. If you want to come visit this area and want to be able to make it across the creek, and you don't want to have wet feet, a rubber boot is a must, or at least waterproof boots, so that you can quickly make a cross. I like the rubber boots because you can actually stand in the creek as long as you want to. Here it is. It's kind of flat in this area. It branches out pretty wide. There are little pools. We have trout in these creeks, at least trout babies, and a lot of crawdaddy, crayfish. The boys like to come here and catch them. Of course, we then release them. Again, the creek goes around the bends, creating mini islands, many different branches, all the way to the far edges of my property line. Let me zoom out. I own again 38.7 acres here. As far as I can see is about the rough border line for the southern region of my land. It goes east-west direction, east, west, north, and south. East-west direction for the lengthy portion of my property. It's pretty much like a big giant rectangular. As I'm out here resting by the therapeutic sounds of the creek, I wanted to take the opportunity to show you what I call Camden Couture. Since I'm in Camden, New York, and this is my fashion statement for the woods, I want to show you what I have. To cross the creek, I have put on my neoprene boots. I'm wearing hiking pants, an old t-shirt, or my handy dandy multi-pocket vest. As you can see, I have my little Cumulus Predator X machete that I just used to chop down some of those thorny bushes. I realized I did not have a belt, so look what I'm using. The string from my trimmer, and I thought I may actually have some need for it if I did lose some as I'm weeding my way, or weed trimming my way all the way here. This is Woods Fashion Camden Couture fall of 2021. Now that it's getting late, it's almost 6 o'clock. I still have about 20 minutes back to the cabin and pack things up and leave for the house. It takes about hour 15, maybe hour and a half to get home. I wanted to show you the other side of the creek as well, just a little bit. Deer tracks crossing through. Now the terrain is uphill again from this point on. The trail split. You can take left or right. If you take this straightaway, or the right hand side trail, it actually takes you to the farthest corner of my property. This was overgrown again. I did cut some trails before all the way through. Let's stick with the main trail and I'll show you a little ways in. Anybody watching this video is welcome to contact me if you ever want to join me, or just come here and enjoy this beautiful piece of land and the cabin by yourselves. And I mean it when I say this. I would like as many people as possible to enjoy the serenity of the nature and the quiet, hum-free woods, to let ground yourselves and have a peaceful setting. I will be coming here every Monday night and Saturday night, starting this coming weekend, as it is hunting season. However, for those people who have no interest in hunting, still may want to join me just to enjoy this beautiful woods. I understand to some people the idea of hunting may be repulsive. However, it is a necessity to keep the deer population under control, as the nature does not have enough predators to keep the population under control. Hunting permits are issued, and when you do it respectfully and by law, you can harvest deer based on your permits, or the tags as they call it. The deer population in New York is quite healthy, and unfortunately they cause a lot of property damage, whether it is agricultural property, as the deer may eat the farmed land or the produce the farmers are trying to grow. Also, the accidents they cause by motor vehicles. Every day, every year, there are millions of dollars of property damage that happens due to deer or the overpopulated deer-related incidents. Here we are heading towards farther north end of my property. This area again looks a little swampier because, as you could tell from the flood signs where the creek bed was, apparently we have had some wet season, and some flat areas or the hollow areas are still full of water. Now that we have passed through the swampy section, which is really not that difficult to walk through, the elevation gets higher again and it's dry. From this point on, as you can tell, the trees have turned into more pine and pine-like vegetation. Right there, the little orange signs, the paint marks on the trees, marks the property line. Again, anybody that wants to come here with or without me, as long as you stay on the main trails, you can be rest assured that you're in my property. You're not trespassing and violating anybody else's rights. But as far deep as we are in the woods, I don't think anybody would really care. It's just out of principle that we should respect people's landmarks and the property lines. The trails keep going up farther that hill ahead of us. However, like I mentioned earlier, it is getting quite late. I still have to go back to the cabin, pack up the stuff, and arrange the trailer and head back to town, which will take me about an hour and a half, including about another 15-20 minutes before I can make it back to the cabin. So let's head back and see what else we can come up with. Heading back towards the camp, I just admire this beautiful deep green of the woods. I wanted to share it with you. Let me stop for a second and let's listen. It's rather quiet. The only thing you hear once in a while is the small breeze whistling on the high tips of the trees and chirping of some birds once in a while as I'm walking in the woods and making this video, and walking on dry leaves as they are crunchy. I'm sure I'm scaring away a lot of wildlife, but that's also a forewarning for them that there is somebody or something coming at them. On brisk or somewhat cold fall morning, when all these leaves are down, you can imagine the ground is covered in crispy, frozen solid leaves. So when you walk on it, it feels like and sounds like you're walking on potato chips. Crunch, 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 crunch. That's again a forewarning for all the wild animals saying, I'm coming, get away, go away. Of course, for a hardcore hunter, that's horrible because you're scaring away your prey. But like I mentioned earlier, I just like the woods. I like to come in, spend the time in it, and if I ever were to get a chance to hunt, I will take the opportunity to do so. But if I didn't, I will not be heartbroken. I just truly enjoy this. I feel grounded. All my negative energy that builds up throughout the work week in the city goes away. You just sit on the ground, lean against a tree, and you can feel all the negativity just discharge of your body, and your soul recharges, so you have a great attitude when you go back to your mundane, monotonous, repetitious daily life. Here we are at the creek again. I just love this portion because the sound of that water is so nice, so therapeutic. You just sit here, close your eyes, and meditate. Made it back at the cabin. Turned the truck and the trailer around. Time to pack up, close up the place, and get ready to hit the road. I'm pretty happy with the outcome. It's nice and wide open now. The tall grass is gone. Got nice clearing around the cabin. My firewood is stacked up high under the front porch. My little table I got from the old man. Fits nice in that narrow porch. Here's the little bench that I also picked up from that same guy. My little makeshift table, I use scrap pieces so I can bring my griddle out to put it on a stand. Now is outside. I probably should pour some polyurethane or something to protect from the elements. They are not pressure treated wood. Eventually it will rot. However, I'm not worried because I can always have a bonfire. Let's pack the place up and get going. It's that time that we get to leave the cabin for the day. It's 6:35 or maybe close to 6:40 right now p.m. I have about an hour and a half drive. I had different plans also today, like going to the service department to drop my truck off. It probably is not going to happen, but I will probably have to do it in the morning. It's getting somewhat dusk. The neighbors are here. It's only complimentary that you give a complimentary honk just to say hi to them, because you never know who you may need and whenever you may need them. That property was for sale. I don't see the for sale sign anymore, so that guy with the truck must have been the new owner. I hope to meet him in person one day. I did not have time to wander around, check out the property. As you know, today was chores day at the cabin and the camp yard. Coming back to that creek where they replaced it, culvert pipe, there was a sinkhole right here. It was kind of narrow. Last winter they fixed it, but it apparently sunk again. It is much better looking. The little log cabin. I never seen anybody there. I met the old man whose son owns it. He also owns another camp yard to our right. They are elderly couple. They come here almost every Sunday. Every time I come here, I see them just to check on their property and leave. There's another property around the corner that's for sale. There's this really big cabin we're driving by. This looks like it has been built on site. To our right is the entrance of another property. This is for sale. That metal gate. Jared, Nate and I last Sunday walked in. It does have a pretty nice 20 by 20 cabin in there with a very large front porch. The cabin looks beautiful, but the driveway from this main road into the cabin, which is some ways in, is almost like a creek bed. It's very soft and it is muddy. You will definitely not be able to drive up in front of the cabin, especially if you have a trailer. There is no way to turn around either, so that's probably the downfall to that property. It looks beautiful. We just passed by another nice large cabin. It has this humongous elk antlers above the front door. I missed to record that, but there are really nice cabins here, and I don't see many people actually coming in. During the hunting season, you do see trucks drive in and out, and some of them are cabin owners and some are just straight hunters, because there are thousands of acres of state land around us too. This is Fallbrook state land and adjacent state land, state forests, where people, general public, can also come in and hunt. Coming down to the lower section, right where the pond is, again, to our right. This is the place I shown you earlier that is right now overflowing onto the road to the other side. where the larger section of the pond exists. I'm trying to go slower now that the trailer is empty. I just have my weed trimmer on it. That thing is bouncing like a basketball on this rough terrain, as it is much lighter. We will be going up that hill. This is a rather steep hill and very narrow. I will honk just to forewarn anybody that may be heading in. I doubt that being a Tuesday evening, not many people will be coming in and out of the woods, but you never know. And here we climb. After that, it flattens out, and little ways out comes the paved road. Coming up ahead is the paved road, Sheehan Road, where I called "Welcome Back to the Civilization." Much quieter to tow the trailer behind now. Beautiful sky. I don't think the camera is doing it justice. It looks like it is too bright in the camera capture, but you can see the different shades of clouds and a light blue sky in the background. There's our farmer neighbors. Going downhill into the tree tunnel. To our right and left, there are also other state lands and state forests, name of which escapes my mind right now. But like I said, this area is all state land, thousands of acres of woods where everybody can come and enjoy or even hunt. As the northern tier bow hunting season opened, it is open game. Looks so beautiful. Looks like you're shooting up into the sky on a ramp. Right in the opening of the trees where the road is, you see nothing but the sky ahead of you. This is now considered hamlet of MPville. I'm heading back towards Camden, New York. There's a few houses here and the famous MPville Pond. I don't know what makes it famous, but it looks like a nice little pond that's coming up right around that curve ahead of us. There it is, MPville Pond. Sharp turn and have a chance of seeing deer again. It's usually the stretch between MPville and Camden where I get to see a lot of deer as I drive. Arriving back into Camden, New York, the village of Camden, just around this bend. We are going to do a little zigzag in town center and continue our way back on Route 69 back to Fulton, New York, where home is. It's getting somewhat dark. I'm not sure how much you can tell. It's right in that dusk ish. Beautiful sky ahead of us, little pinkish silhouette coming through gray clouds. Gray clouds, however, it's not because it's about to rain, it's just the shade of the day. There's not much sunlight left. This is that Church Street I have shown you before. We're gonna go through town and out in the open road back home. The town still has that small American town feel where little stores and old buildings on either side of the road still exist. Unfortunately, the great shopping malls has killed the small businesses in many settlements, in many towns and villages, strip malls alike.